pitch. The Bucks head into the desert to outshine the Suns.
Here's a great feed. Lillard feeds Giannis, and Giannis rams it home on a tremendous two-man action there.
Our coverage starts tonight at 8:30. We are your home for the Milwaukee Bucks. News Radio 620 WTMJ, Milwaukee.
Good morning. 9 o'clock. We have 32 degrees. Look for decreasing cloudiness today. It will be breezy with a high of 44. From the WTMJ Breaking News Center, I'm Connie Weber. A tragedy at Marquette University.
Marquette University police found a student dead in his off-campus apartment Thursday evening. 21-year-old John Kozer lived at Campus East on 14th and Wells. He was a senior, just weeks away from graduating from the College of Business Administration. Kozer was double majoring in finance and marketing and worked as a student employee at the Union Sports Annex. His death is still being investigated. The university is planning a mass to honor Kozer this week. Jessica Gatso, WTMJ News.
It was another weekend of protests across the country. They ranged from the so-called Tesla takedown movement to efforts to get Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer to resign over a recent funding bill vote. Hundreds protested outside of Social Security offices nationwide, demanding the federal government not make changes to the program. And in Chicago, the National Association of Letter Carriers held a rally against possible cuts to the U.S. Postal Service. A federal appeals court in Washington hears oral arguments this afternoon over President Trump's use of wartime authority to deport alleged Venezuelan gang members to El Salvador without a hearing. ABC's Stephen Portnoy has that story.
A three-judge panel of the D.C. Circuit Appeals Court will weigh the administration's push to overturn Judge James Boasberg's order restraining the president's use of the Alien Enemies Act. The appeals panel includes appointees of two Republican presidents, including Trump, as well as an Obama nominee. The administration argues the men who've been subject to the use of the enemies law have been thoroughly vetted as members of Tren de Aragua. But attorneys and relatives say several of those who've been sent to a Salvadoran prison are not members of the gang.
Gateway Technical College has dissolved its Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. Editor-in-chief of the Milwaukee Business Journal, Timothy Gibbons, tells WTMJ.
The university's president said that it was a difficult decision and that the school does remain committed to its mission of serving all students and helping them on their path to success.
It's the latest institution to comply with federal guidelines threatening funding losses. One of the nation's leading voices against childhood vaccination is the man who's been named Secretary of Health and Human Services, but even R.F. Kennedy Jr. seems to have his limits, as we hear from ABC's Jim Ryan.
In 2007, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. founded the Children's Health Defense, a nonprofit group vocally opposed to vaccines. But the group apparently went rogue recently, putting up a webpage that mimicked the CDC informational site, except that the CHD version suggested that the measles vaccine causes autism. RFK Jr. himself ordered the group he founded to take the page down, according to the New York Times.
Pope Francis back at the Vatican today after being released from the hospital Sunday. Before his discharge, the 88-year-old Pope made a brief public appearance for the first time in more than 5 weeks from a balcony at Rome's hospital. A Wisconsin company has been named the best company to work for in America.
Madison-based Fairway Independent Mortgage Corporation scored first place on the USA Today list for the second consecutive year. The company has 5,000 employees nationally and operates in all 50 states. Recently opened a second corporate location in Texas. Founded in 1996, Fair Place was also recently named a top workplace by Forbes magazine. More than 50 Wisconsin companies made the list. Other big national names near the top of the list, Fannie Mae and Progressive. John Merkier, WTMJ News.
Over 1,300 customers without power in Milwaukee this morning. We Energies reports an equipment issue with an overhead line problem near 6th and McKinley, likely caused by high winds. They expect to have power restored within the next half hour. With high winds expected today, We Energies reminds customers to stay away from downed power lines and report them right away to 911. Time for news about your money in the WTMJ Annex Wealth Management Market Update. Markets opened higher this morning. Dow up 484 points. NASDAQ up 331. The S&P 500 is up 81. Financial planning at every level. Annex Comprehensive Wealth, Annex Private Client, Annex Ignite. Details at annexwealth.com. Sports, traffic, and weather are next. Outdoor Living Unlimited, WTMJ News Time, 9:04.
The Lifetime Door Free Garage Door Contest is almost over. Time is running out to win a brand new garage door from Lifetime Door. Absolutely free. This contest ends March 31st. Don't miss the chance to win a stunning, high-quality garage door that will boost your home's curb appeal and value. Entering is easy. Text GARAGE to the WTMJ Talk and Text line, or just go to WTMJ.com and the entry form is on the very front page. It's just that simple. For contest rules, visit our website, WTMJ.com.
With an ever-changing inventory, you never know what great bargains you're going to be able to find at St. Vincent de Paul thrift stores. It makes shopping fun because the best finds are the ones you had no idea you'd even come across. And when they're at thrift store prices, it feels good. And it feels even better to know you're helping us help others. Shop St. Vincent de Paul thrift stores on Highway 100 in Layton and Greenfield, 23rd in Lincoln, and 76th and Bradley Road in Milwaukee.
You're gonna love it, St. Vincent de Paul.
Please, please, please. Hear that? That's shady Brad Schimmel on his knees begging for money from wealthy billionaires who want to buy Wisconsin's Supreme Court.
I have to crawl around begging people.
And the more Brad Schimmel begs,
please, please, please,
the more they shell out because everyone knows shady Brad Schimmel is for sale.
I have to crawl around begging people.
After all, Schimmel cut a crooked plea deal with a man caught with child pornography after his lawyer gave Schimmel thousands in campaign cash. What could have been a 25-year sentence was dropped to just 3 years for that sick predator. So it's no wonder billionaires want shady Brad Schimmel on the Wisconsin Supreme Court. They've seen Schimmel help his campaign donors, just like he did for that criminal's lawyer.
I have to invest in knee pads.
Brad Schimmel, if you're listening, get up off your knees. You're embarrassing yourself. Paid for by the Justice Project.
Please, please, please.
Not authorized by any candidate or candidate's agent or committee.
Please, please, please.
Time for a WTMJ Sports Update from the Gruber Law Office's One Call That's All Sports Desk. Number 3, Wisconsin got knocked out by 6-seeded BYU 91-89 in the second round of the NCAA tournament over the weekend. Badgers finished the season at 27-10. Number 7, Marquette was eliminated by 10th-seeded New Mexico 75-66 in round 1. They end the year at 23-11. Badger Sports Update sponsored by Siding Unlimited, siding and a whole lot more. And the college basketball tournament update brought to you by Outdoor Living Unlimited. Bucks continue their road trip tonight. Team tips off against Kevin Durant and the Suns from Phoenix. Milwaukee coming off a close victory over the Kings and has won 2 straight. Bucks still 5th in the East. Brewers went even in split squad action yesterday. Team shut out the Rockies 6-0, followed up with a 10-6 loss to the Mariners. Milwaukee now 15-14. They wrap up exhibition play against Colorado this afternoon. Taking a look at the roads with your WTMJ Johnson & Sons paving time saver traffic. Pretty quiet out there. We do have a broken down vehicle that is blocking the right shoulder, but there don't appear to be any major delays from this. This is going to be I-94 East at County Road T. Here's your WTMJ 5-day forecast. After some possible flurries to the north, decreasing cloudiness today. Breezy today with a high of 44. We could see wind gusts up to about 35 miles an hour. Clear tonight with a low 29. Sun and clouds tomorrow with a high 45. Partly cloudy Wednesday with a high 46. Mostly cloudy Thursday up to 54. And then a chance of rain rolls in on Friday with a high of 55. Right now, Madison's at 30. Green Bay's at 30. Milwaukee, 32 degrees. I'm Connie Weber. Outdoor Living Unlimited, WTMJ News Time, 9:07.
Good morning, Wisconsin. So let's pour that coffee and talk to some experts about what's going on in Milwaukee, Madison, Washington, and beyond. Broadcasting live from the Annex Wealth Management Studios at the Avenue in beautiful downtown Milwaukee. It's the Political Power Hour on WTMJ. Here's your host, Steve Scaffidi.
Should we talk about the government?
Happy Monday, everybody. Welcome to the Political Power Hour, 620 WTMJ. You have your fill of watching basketball over the weekend? I didn't watch that much. Sort of toned down my enthusiasm for college basketball the last few years, but that doesn't mean it wasn't exciting. I heard all the stories from all the sports people that coursed through this building. Ran into Brad Nortman from the afternoon show on ESPN 94.5, filling in for the Tausch on Wilde and Tausch. That's a big, big spot to fill there. So good job, Brad. All right, so typically in this hour program, we have Matt Smith from Channel 12. He's the political director there. But I always, even when he's not on, I'd like to capture some of the great interviewing that Matt does, along with Jared and Jordan from Channel 12 in Milwaukee. And I had Ben Wickler on last week, but I wanted to give equal time to Brian Schimming. So I got a couple clips from Brian Schimming, who's the chairman of the Wisconsin's Republican Party. So we're going to kind of look at what they have to say. I'll talk a little bit about what's on their mind, but we'll start with a short clip from the Republican chair of the Republican chair of the party in Wisconsin. He is Brian Schimming, who's also, by the way, welcome for live conversation on this program whenever he would like. A little bit of that.
Very close. It's a very good contrast between a law and order candidate in Brad Schimmel, someone who has experience as a prosecutor, as a judge, as a person who values fairness. We're excited. We see it all over the state. It certainly seems to be a pretty good off-year turnout than we've seen in the past. But the contrast is great. A law and order candidate like Brad Schimmel versus probably one of the most liberal people ever to run for Supreme Court.
I think he's right on the closeness of this race. I think it'll be very close. I think both of the races, the superintendent of public instruction in Wisconsin, between Jill Underly and Brittany Kinzer, who was on the program, also offered time to Jill Underly. So if she's of the mind that she would like to do that, we can certainly squeeze her in before the race. We don't do it on the day before or the day of the actual election, which is coming up in less than, what do we got? A week plus. Coming up quickly, first Tuesday in April. When I think about this race from a perspective of someone who talks about politics, it's pretty clearly defined. And we know now that liberals have the majority in the Wisconsin Supreme Court. The election of Judge Janet Protasiewicz shifted the court from a conservative lean. There's always the conversation about Brian Hagedorn, and I enjoy the conversation because I think that Brian Hagedorn, well, I'll say this. I think he's the smartest justice on the state's highest court. Not even close, actually. Second is probably a drop down quite a bit. And what that does is it sometimes frustrates conservatives because he doesn't just, for lack of a better term, vote the party line. I think he uses his gray matter and his brain and actually can craft some pretty smart opinions that are related to the facts of the case. And that's why I appreciate his work. He's been a guest on the program. But I would say right now, if I was going to handicap this race, I'd give a slight edge to Waukesha County Judge Brad Schimmel, who was on the program last week, as was Susan Crawford last Wednesday. You can find that interview, those interviews, both on our podcast page at WTMJ.com. And I encourage you to listen because we asked all the questions that you would ask. Certainly the rape kits, that testing question mark, which was certainly brought up during Brad Schimmel's tenure as AG. I have often been asked about this question. What's the reality here? Whose fault is it? I'm going to go back to the legislature. Adequate funding, adequate resources, that's not an issue. And shame on the legislature for not funding law enforcement, research, and really fundamental pieces, especially when we're talking about a surplus, and that's been our reality. Again, thanks to the conservatives in the legislature for getting us to a surplus. Didn't happen before they sort of assumed the power position in the Wisconsin state legislature. And I think that's sort of one of those swirling stories that we're going to be talking about throughout the rest of this campaign and probably beyond. So I encourage you to find that interview and listen to what the candidates say. And they both make a smart defense of their stance on this issue. Somebody asked me, who do you think was more concerned about their opponent? And I listened back to both interviews that I did with the candidates. And Susan Crawford brought up, I don't think she brought up his name, but she referred to my opponent as almost on a 2-to-1 difference between how often Judge Brad Schimmel brought up his opponent. So just a few considerations there. We're going to take a break. After the break, we'll hear from Ben Wickler, also talking about the race. Notice, I'll give you a little tease. Notice the difference in how Ben Wickler looks at this race. It's stark. It certainly was demonstrated last Thursday when he was on the program. Just listen for what he says. That's all coming up after the break here on 620 WTMJ.
Wisconsin's Midday News, bringing you the latest in news.
A new bill to fund the federal government will cut millions from Wisconsin projects.
Sports.
The Bucs just aren't that good. They've not beaten the top 3 teams in the Eastern Conference.
Traffic.
I've never heard of this. I don't think I've ever seen this, and I have done traffic for years in different situations.
And weather.
Well, sun is shining, still chilly, however.
Join Greg Matzik and Jessica Ty, only on WTMJ.
Hey, this is WTMJ, Steve Scaffidi for Advents. I just heard my friend Jody talking about Advent and what they did for her. Same story. And I would like to think that Jody heard my story, or some of you out there, and said, you know what, I can do something about this. I can go to Advent, one of the great facilities, and do something about my tossing and turning, my snoring, my restless nights of sleep, waking up tired, not refreshed or rested, I went to Advent, 30-minute visit, asked all my questions. They put me at ease. They're fantastic to work with. They're so nice, so friendly, and I'll have to say it's so knowledgeable about what they do. For me, it was sinuses and nasal passages in my breathing triangle. They did a short procedure in one of their offices. I'm back to breathing better than ever. So much oxygen. It's stark how much a difference it makes. My wife, Kathy, and I sleeping through the whole night. For your bed partner, whoever that might be, if you struggle like I used to, take the time to see how Advent can help you. To find out breathing well and sleeping well can make your nights better, go to adventknows.com, schedule an appointment today, because Advent knows when you breathe well, you live better.
Come on in and take advantage of Fleet Farm Member Appreciation Days, March 20th through the 26th. Fleet Rewards members can take an extra 10% off qualifying purchases, in-store and online. Not a member? Sign up to get your discount now. The extra 10% is our way of thanking you for being a loyal Fleet Rewards member. So stock up on everything you need during Member Appreciation Days, now through Wednesday, and enjoy even more savings at Fleet Farm. Some restrictions apply.
Elon Musk, who is financing Brad Schimmel's campaign, he's put in $13.2 million. His group just released a polling memo that put Brad Schimmel 5 points behind, if I read that right. They're trying to goose turnout by advertising the fact that Schimmel is going to do whatever Donald Trump wants. They are going around with flyers that say Schimmel will advance Trump's agenda. They're trying to get Trump supporters to turn out like Trump is on the ballot. The problem is, across the state, really, people are furious at what Musk is doing, at what Trump is doing. I think what voters want is someone who's not bought and paid for by far-right MAGA billionaires that are trying to dismember the Constitution and undermine the federal government.
Let's talk about the money in this race. The spending could top
a good ruling in
here in these massive amounts. Is this
and undermine the federal government?
And there's a little bit of Ben Wickler there. One of the things that I noticed right away, and probably you noticed, he immediately turned this into a national race. Now, I'm not naive. I understand that there's tons of money. What are you approaching? 80 million now? I think the projection last week was 70, now 80. In the third segment of this half hour, I'm going to give you some of the groups that contribute. Some of you know, some of you maybe haven't heard of. But it is interesting that Democrats are sort of defining this race as a battle against Elon Musk and Donald Trump. I don't agree with that. Now, I know why they're doing it, because it's going to fire up, they think, their base, who are angry about whatever cuts Elon Musk under the guidance of Donald Trump presidency have impacted Democrats, organizations, agencies. The big one last week, of course, Department of Education, essentially being throttled down, shut down, handing back to the states. And I always want to preface comments about spending or budget cuts. One, let's be careful on how we look at these things. Congress has been lazy, both sides, in how they've managed our tax dollars over the years. That's not a leap. That's not a, just throwing it out there, seeing what hits the wall. That's the reality. Exploding deficits. I think you have to go back to Bill Clinton. Every time I hear this, it shocks me. The last time we had a balanced budget, which should always be the goal. Local governments, state governments, always working towards a balanced budget. In the case of Wisconsin, we have a surplus. But when we look at this race, what do you want the rule of law to be in Wisconsin? Ultimately, that's how I see the race. It's certainly fair game to call Susan Crawford, a judge from Dane County, a liberal judge. I think that's been reflected in her commentary, her answers to my questions last week. And certainly her public comments made it at appearances around the state. And I'll credit both candidates equally. Thanks for putting yourselves out there. It's not often the case. Matter of fact, I'll take a shot at Jill Underly, the current superintendent of Department of Public Instruction, who has been very careful and calculated in her public appearances. I would have argued that perhaps given the flack she's taken from former allies like Governor Evers, that she probably should have been out there more. But I think the Schimmel-Crawford race shows what candidates can do positively to impact the votes. They've gone to all the events. I just heard that Brad Schimmel was at a bow hunting dinner Friday nights I think it was in Waukesha County, maybe a surrounding county. I love that. That means you're talking to voters in their reality, in their context. Not necessarily, and I'm not taking a shot at radio or even press clubs or those things, but those are sort of structured events. A natural conversation that happens at one of these many, many events around the state of Wisconsin where a candidate shows up is your chance, often one-on-one, to have a conversation with the candidates. Going back to what I said in segment one, very, very close race. I would give the edge to Brad Schimmel. I think the law and order sort of narrative is going to play well in Wisconsin. Now, that's not predicting a win. Our electorate is certainly one that may surprise us on occasion. I'm not putting much stock in the increase in early voting. I think it's sort of doubled, but again, we don't know who those voters are. If you're on the Schimmel camp, that may be an excited Republican base who are excited about the recent endorsements by Elon Musk and Donald Trump to their candidate, Brad Schimmel. It could be, if you listen to Ben Wickler, that the grassroots efforts that he has organized or helped organize in the state of Wisconsin has led to sort of an increased enthusiasm about this race. Having said all that, this is certainly a race that will make a statement, if it goes to Susan Crawford, this race, about the impact and imports of Donald Trump and Elon Musk. If voters decide that's what they care about, then, and that's the message they send, we'll certainly have to think about that, and that would send a shockwave, albeit a small one, maybe a 5-point something on the Richter scale, across the country that says, oh, maybe Donald Trump, Elon Musk aren't as popular as they think they are. Now, whether that would temper or slow down some of the shock and awe impacts of what Elon Musk and Donald Trump and his administration have done, I'm not sure. It may fire him up even more. I mean, trying to assess the day-to-day directions of the Trump campaign is sort of an exercise in futility. The president was incensed about a picture that hangs on the wall of a state office. I think it was in Wyoming or something. It's not a flattering picture. He spent a lot of time on Truth Social and some other places blasting them for having that picture up. That suggests someone who's really not fine-tuning his messaging on what matters. I think if you ask voters, I'm going to get to some of the big contributors to these campaigns in Wisconsin in a second. If you ask voters right now, what are you most concerned about? I think it's the same thing as it was in November. Law and order, inflation, gas and groceries. I noticed the gas took a tick higher this week. I saw $3.19. I haven't seen a 3+ gas price for a while. Very little explanation on why that is. Although I will note that Meijer gas station had it for $2.89. So if that's the bargain, I don't know. We'll have to see. All right. After the break, I'm going to spell out some of the big contributors to these campaigns. $80 million. And I wouldn't be shocked if it hit $90 million at some point with a week plus out. This is a race that is looked on nationally as a signaler of what to come in the future when it comes to the policies and actions and words of Donald Trump and his administration, and probably more importantly in Wisconsin, the direction of our state Supreme Court on issues like Act 10, budget surpluses, even that's sort of part of the thing because you're talking about the governor with his veto power, the limits and opportunities of a governor to change budgets by the stroke of a pen, and certainly abortion, the 1849 law, and what happens to that. And whether this court decides to do anything on these issues before August when the new court is seated, I'm not sure. My guest last week didn't have a strong opinion on that either. We'll take a quick break here. After the break, some of the big contributors. Some you've heard of, some you haven't. That's next. The Political Power Hour on 620 WTMJ.
Since the Wisconsin weather isn't up to speed yet.
It's not that scary, and you could use a little sun, trust me.
Outside bad. The sun's scary.
A little sun doesn't sound like a threat.
I'm not afraid of the sun anymore.
How's the moon treating you?
Not a fan. Safer.
The Bucks head out to Phoenix to take on the Suns.
Lillard's got it top of the arc. He's going to try to answer, and he connects again.
Our Bucks Radio Network game day coverage starts tonight at 8:30. We are the home of the Bucks, WTMJ.
Always love talking about Heiser. Steve Scaffidi for WTMJ and Heiser Automotive. Still driving my 2023 Chevy Silverado. Almost turnover time. That means I get a new vehicle. I don't even know what it is yet, but if you are interested in the truck experience. Now, I've driven F-150s. I actually traded mine into Heiser when I bought a new Chevy Trailblazer recently for my wife, Kathy. And I've experienced this one since hunting season. 2023 Chevy Silverado, 1500 LT, really cool glacier blue metallic color. I love the look of this truck. But even more importantly than that, the ride is incredible, smooth, even on those bumpy highways that we have across the states. It has all the power, all the payload, towing capacity, and the kicker, I guess, for me is the great gas mileage. 24 city, 29 highway. I've gotten 30 on a trip. What else are they doing? Heiser always leads in innovation and experience, and their Safe and Sound program, their vehicle exchange program, roadside assistance for life. Ask them about it. Go to one of 5 great locations or go to Heiser.com. Find out about the Heiser experience, which I've now known to love for, 20-plus years. Find out for yourself. That's why they say every day, today's your day.
He's Donald Trump's right-hand man, Elon Musk. And now Musk is trying to buy Brad Schimmel a seat on the Wisconsin Supreme Court. Because Musk knows when you buy Schimmel, he'll do whatever you want. Like when Schimmel gave a plea deal to a man caught with child porn after the man's lawyer gave Schimmel thousands of dollars. And Schimmel will ban abortion with no exceptions for rape, incest, or the health of the mother. Deeply corrupt and totally extreme. That's the real Brad Schimmel. There's a better choice.
I'm Judge Susan Crawford. As a former prosecutor and now as a judge, I've made sure rapists, murderers, and child predators were behind bars.
Protecting your family and your most basic rights. That's Judge Susan Crawford.
And I trust women to make their own healthcare decisions. Brad Schimmel doesn't, but I always will.
So on April 1st, vote for Judge Susan Crawford, Supreme Court. Paid for by Susan Crawford for Wisconsin.
Your European experts at Fox World Travel are ramping up and busy as ever. With the trending spring and summer European travel season, Fox European experts mean you can maximize your time soaking up the warm weather, blooming flowers, and vibrant landscapes without worrying about your travel or missing a moment. Port hop along the Mediterranean with Celebrity or Holland America, or design your own bucket list adventure with Globus. Visit us online or call 866-GO-FOX-GO. Your European immersion awaits.
Well, I will say this. I love to hear Democrats talk about how much they suddenly hate big money in politics. The state Democratic Party has taken almost $15 million for one contributor alone, who was on a call with Susan Crawford, where they openly talked about a liberal Supreme Court to get rid of 2 Republican seats in the House of Representatives right here in Wisconsin. So the money, the Democrats started bragging 4 or 5 years ago about how much money they were bringing into the state. Suddenly, they don't like it.
I actually like that comment from Republican Party Chair Brian Schimmel because he's right. No big argument when Zuckerberg and George Soros were contributing millions and millions of dollars. You don't really get to complain when Elon Musk, who I think at this point is in for over $10 million, had contributed to this race, when they're doing essentially the same thing. Now, I mentioned I was going to talk about some of the groups. The first group to get into this thing, and there's some great reporting in the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel today that talks about all of the import and the actions of some of these groups. Daniel Bice, who I think is going to be on the program next week, and Allison Durr of the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel, sort of detailing, who's doing what's being spent in this race. According to this reporting, this was as of last 30. They were at 59 million. As I said, they're on their way to 80 million. So when you look at this race, there's a lot of money coming in. All right. So the group that I noticed first in this race, now that of course when I want to look at it, I can't find it. Better Wisconsin Together, liberal group, came out right away when this race was sort of the 2 candidates was finalized. The big messaging was untested rape kits. $7 million in ads. They've also gone after Brad Schimmel for his anti-abortion views, accused him of taking money from Big Pharma. So that's sort of an early entrance. Another one is Building America's Future. It's a political nonprofit, doesn't really say who its donors are. That group has contributed about, I think, $4 million. Actually, 6.5. There are other groups. Wisconsin Manufacturers and Commerce, WMC. A lot of people are familiar with the group. Very, very busy business lobby group. They're the second highest. They've bought $5 million worth of airtime, obviously, from the conservative perspective. And another one, Fair Courts America, conservative group, has paid for and booked airtime, about $3.5 million through the election. And, oh, by the way, another $500,000 on digital ads, mailers, and texts. Can I just say this about the flyers, mailers, texts? I'm not a fan. I think it's an incredible waste of money. And I would say that if you are influenced by any of that, think about how you do things. Some of the names to think about when it comes to funding these races: billionaire Richard Uihlein, $9.5 million. And, of course, Elon Musk, head of the Doge group in the Trump administration. Well over $10 million. So just a quick look at all of the money coming in the race. Could be $80 million by the end. All right, great conversation coming up after the bottom of the hour news. Todd Hirsch, Canadian economist, on all things related to tariffs. That's coming up. Local news with Connie. Of course, here's now the latest from ABC News.
ABC News, I'm Brian Clark. A federal judge upheld the temporary restriction on the Trump administration's use of the Alien Enemies Act to deport suspected Venezuelan gang members. That's ahead of a hearing this afternoon. ABC's Terry Moran has details on that.
Now the showdown between Trump and the judiciary enters a new phase, heading to the U.S. Court of Appeals in Washington as the administration looks to reverse Judge Boasberg's order halting some deportations.
The Trump administration's asking the U.S. Supreme Court to stop a ruling that ordered the rehiring of about 16,000 fired federal workers. Another round of talks underway in Saudi Arabia between delegations from the U.S. and Russia focused at reaching a deal to end the war in Ukraine. Genealogy website 23andMe's filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy and will continue to operate. But over the weekend, California's Attorney General released a statement reminding consumers of their right to have their genetic information deleted. This is ABC News.
Outdoor Living Unlimited, WTMJ News Time, 9:31. I'm Connie Weber. Our power back on for the more than 1,300 customers in Milwaukee who lost it this morning. We Energy says it was an overhead line problem near 6th and McKinley, likely caused by high winds. With high winds expected again today, We Energy reminds customers to stay away from down power lines and report them right away by calling 911. Attempted suicide of an inmate at the Dane County Jail. Deputies found the 42-year-old who was attempting to strangle himself. He's in the hospital, should recovered. A missing Dane County inmate is back in custody. 33-year-old Anthony Gilbert was reported AWOL by police last Wednesday. He's serving a sentence for obstructing justice and possession of methamphetamine. Gilbert was taken back into custody without incident. Time for some news about your money in the WTMJ Annex Wealth Management Market Update. Dow up 521 points at 42,507. NASDAQ up 357 at 18,141. S&P 500 up 85 at 5,754. Financial planning at every level. Annex Comprehensive Wealth, Annex Private Client, Annex Ignite. Details at annexwealth.com. Take a look at the roads now with your WTMJ Johnson & Sons Paving Time Saver traffic in Ozaukee County. I-43 northbound closed at County Road D to J Road due to a crash. Also now the southbound left lane also closed at J Road due to that crash. We'll keep you posted, let you know when that is reopened. I-41 south at Greenfield Avenue, right shoulder, they're blocked due to an incident. Here's your WTMJ 5-day forecast. Decreasing cloudiness today. Breezy, high 44. Clear and 29 overnight. Sun and clouds tomorrow, high 45. Partly cloudy Wednesday, high 46. Mostly cloudy on Thursday with a high up to 54. Then a chance of rain on Friday, 55 for the high. 30 in Madison and Green Bay, 32 in Milwaukee. I'm Connie Weber. Outdoor Living Unlimited, WTMJ News Time, 9:33.
Tune in on Sundays at 10 a.m. for the AccuNet Mortgage and Realty Show. Join AccuNet's Brian and David Wickert for the most up-to-date information on mortgage trends, along with timely news on the real estate market. The housing market is in flux, but the national headlines don't often fit local market conditions. Find out what's really happening on the front lines of real estate and mortgage financing in Wisconsin and make better decisions by tuning in every Sunday at 10 a.m. The AccuNet Mortgage and Realty Show with Brian and David Wickert on WTMJ.
When I shop St. Vincent de Paul thrift stores, every time I come in, it's like a whole new store. It's because new inventory is arriving daily, all kinds of everything. And let me tell you, thrift store prices make buying easy. And helping others at the same time, that's icing on the cake. St. Vincent de Paul thrift stores on Highway 100 in Layton and Greenfield, 23rd in Lincoln, and 76th and Bradley Road in Milwaukee.
You're gonna love it, St. Vincent de Paul.
Please, please, please. Hear that? That's shady Brad Schimmel on his knees begging for money from wealthy billionaires who want to buy Wisconsin's Supreme Court.
I have to crawl around begging people.
And the more Brad Schimmel begs,
please, please, please,
the more they shell out. Because everyone knows shady Brad Schimmel is for sale.
I have to crawl around begging people.
After all, Schimmel cut a crooked plea deal with a man caught with child pornography after his lawyer gave Schimmel thousands in campaign cash. What could have been a 25-year sentence was dropped to just 3 years for that sick predator. So it's no wonder billionaires want shady Brad Schimmel on the Wisconsin Supreme Court. They've seen Schimmel help his campaign donors, just like he did for that criminal's lawyer.
I have to invest in knee pads.
Brad Schimmel, if you're listening, get up off your knees. You're embarrassing yourself. Paid for by the Justice Project.
Please, please, please.
Not authorized by any candidate or candidate's agent or committee.
Please, please, please.
I've been looking forward to this conversation. Thanks for tuning in to the Political Power Hour on 620 WTMJ. So I get a lot of U.S. perspective on tariffs, the actions of the president, or at least what the president, Donald J. Trump, is proposing. But I wanted to hear from somebody who's in one of the countries that's impacted by these ideas. Today we're talking to on the phone Todd Hirsch. He's a Canadian economist, author, speaker, public speaker. He's worked for the Bank of Canada. Oh, by the way, he's the author of 4 books and has taught economics at the University of Calgary for 9 years. Welcome to the show, Todd.
Thanks for having me, Steve. Good to be here.
All right, so I'm going to ask you a fun one first, away from economics. This is an idea that the president has floated. You know it's coming. This idea, this notion that somehow Canada is going to be our 51st state, how is that playing in Canada?
It is not playing well, let me tell you about it. And, it's interesting because way back in probably November, December after the election, the president would sort of just put things on social media, and we all kind of thought it was a joke and he's just ribbing us. But no, this isn't a joke. I mean, the number of times he's repeated this, even recently, I think most Canadians now have moved well beyond this as a joke, maybe even well beyond we're a bit offended by it, to the point where we're kind of getting angry at even the suggestion that we're going to do this. And the comparison I like is you can have a next door neighbor and they can be your best friends and your kids can play together in each other's basements all the time and you get along fantastically. But if that neighbor came to you and said, you're going to come and move in our house and we're going to annex your house, you would say, no, that's not the way good neighbors behave. Your house is your house and our house is our house. We love being your neighbor, but this idea of the 51st state is not going over well.
Now, where that touches the story of economics and more directly or more specifically prices and certainly boycotts of products, travel boycotts, have you seen, from your perspective, from a professional expert on economics, some impact already where Canadians are actually saying, you know what, we're not buying those products. We are not traveling to those sort of warm destinations in South Florida or Texas or Las Vegas. Have you seen that?
Absolutely. In fact, there is and I've never seen it. I mean, I've lived in Canada my entire life. I've never seen this sort of anger and, we're not going to spend our holiday dollars in the U.S. And I think it's important for Americans to understand, and this is a really important point, Canadians are not mad at Americans. We're mad at the president. But the only way we seem to be able to express that is by, not spending our dollars, our discretionary holiday dollars in the U.S. And where we can, trying to, buy more Canadian products in the grocery store rather than American products. Now, that gets a little bit challenging, to be honest. Pine cone soup doesn't taste so great. There's a lot of things we just can't grow in Canada because of our climate. So at some point, you have to decide, do I really like orange juice, or can I have some more apple juice from British Columbia apples? So we're having to make some tough choices, but Canadians really are trying to, where they can, buy Canada and support Canadian businesses.
You're an economics expert. From your perspective, your professional expertise and experience, when tariffs are talked about, what's your understanding of what tariffs are? Because this is sort of a fluid thing in the United States, especially in the mind of Donald J. Trump, the President of the United States.
Yeah.
And probably more importantly, their actual impact on consumers in both countries, Canada and the United States.
Well, from an economics point of view, tariffs it's an absolute terrible idea. I've not yet really seen a serious economist who would say tariffs are a good idea. And when you look at the last maybe 70, 80 years of global economics, the reason the world's economy has prospered so much over the last half of the 20th century, basically since the end of the Second World War, is because tariffs came down around the world. We entered a period of globalization, more specialization, especially in manufacturing. Now, that free trade and coming down of tariffs, there are winners and losers for sure. But generally speaking, there's been far more winners. What's happened, though, is that those regions, those parts of the world, the U.S. Midwest, Ontario, Canada, those places that lost a lot of manufacturing jobs, it happened really, really quickly. Not overnight, but it happened over a generation, and it wiped out industries very quickly. And that has left a lot of people feeling angry and feeling like I didn't win from globalization. But generally speaking, when you look at sort of the net benefits of it, hundreds of millions of people, possibly billions of people around the world have been lifted out of poverty because of the benefits of globalization and low tariffs. Now the pendulum is all swinging backwards. And by the way, the United States is not the only country that is doing this. We saw this in the United Kingdom pulling out of the European Union. But we're seeing more kind of nationalism. We're seeing more tariff walls wanting to go up, more protectionist. And, there are reasons for that, but the consequence is going to be less economic prosperity, higher prices for consumers. Just like I said, we don't like a lot of pine cone soup here in Canada because we like buying U.S. produce. But Americans also purchase a lot from Canada. Resources like oil and gas, things like lumber, things like steel and aluminum. And those things are going to cost more for American consumers as well.
We're talking to Canadian economist Todd Hirsch. We'll take a break here. After the break, I want to ask him, because I know Todd has worked in the banking industry in Canada, and I want to get their thoughts, that industry, on what they think about all these recent developments and pronouncements by President Donald J. Trump. You're listening, of course, to the Political Power Hour on 620 WTMJ.
Burkhardt Sporting Goods has a great reputation for producing custom team apparel. We're total team outfitters, and we can handle the biggest jobs. Our success in custom team apparel led us into group and corporate apparel. Plus, we have a full selection of promotional products for employee gifts, special events, you name it. And we've made it easy for our customers to firm up their orders. The group sale web stores that we build for our customers are a simple way of gathering all the information you need. They're easy to work, easy to understand, and with them you'll have access to nearly limitless options. We've seen that most times we're better priced than our competition on the same high-quality apparel choices that the other guys offer. Plus Nike and Under Armour choices that the other guys can't get. And we offer a huge brand selection from Yeti, North Face, and Carhartt too. This is Brian Burkhardt. For team, group, or corporate custom outfitting and promotional products, it's going to be really hard to beat our prices, selection, and ease of buying for any size budget and every size company. And that's why we always say,
you can't beat Burkhardt.
New Berlin and Fox Point.
Hey, moms, dads, grandparents, what are your plans for spring break? WTMJ's John Mercure here. I've got a great idea for you. With no school this week, you need an outing. Take your kids, take your grandkids to the amazing Mind Chef restaurant and entertainment center in Hartford for hours of safe and super affordable fun. I used to take my daughters there all the time. My nieces and nephews, too. They loved it. I loved it. The Mind Chef has a world-class game room, over 70 games, including the most popular and easiest games, even for the youngsters. Today through Thursday, kids 5 and under eat free from the kids' menu. Monday and Thursday, when you buy one pizza, your second pizza is always free. Wednesday and Friday, the all-you-can all-you-can-eat fish fry is $7.99. What a value. The Mine Shaft will entertain your kids this week during spring break, especially your teenagers. Grandparents, spend time with your grandkids at the Mine Shaft. They're going to love it. Downtown Hartford and off the highway in Oshkosh. Just walk in. It's big food. It's big fun. It's incredible. It's the amazing Mine Shaft.
For WTMJ contest rules, visit WTMJ.com/contests.
Hey, John Mercure here for Guthrie and Fry Water Conditioning. My reverse osmosis system in my house is fantastic. The water I drink, the water we feed the dogs, the water we cook with is crisp, clean, and clear thanks to Guthrie and Fry's RO system. It's technology that's been around for a long time, but it's the best in the business, and Guthrie and Fry will get it to you. It's affordable, it's effective, and you'll feel a lot better. It's all about the science. Southeast Wisconsin's #1 choice, and my choice is Guthrie and Fry Water Conditioning.
Better water makes a big difference. Guthrie and Fry.
Are you ready to shake things up at Potawatomi Casino Hotel, Milwaukee? All you gotta do is toss your rewards card into your favorite slots for drawing entries and a chance to be in the Roll for Riches game show. What's on the table? Oh, just $300K in cash and prizes. Play this March, and Thursday nights, you could get on a winning streak that, frankly, you deserve. Let it ride and roll for riches. Only at Potawatomi. More info online. Must be 21 and a rewards member to play.
Continue our conversation with Todd Hirsch, Canadian economist, author, and speaker. Tell folks about your books and where they can find them, Todd.
Well, I've written 4 books. 2 of the most recent ones are, it's kind of apropos to what we're talking about right now, but it's talking about adapting to sudden, unwanted change. So what do you do when everything you thought you knew about the world or your business or even your personal health situation suddenly, sometimes over a phone call, changes dramatically? How do you adapt to that? So my co-author and I, we wrote one in 2017, and then we wrote another one during the pandemic, because the pandemic was a great example of sudden, unwanted change that affected everybody on the planet. How do you adapt? What are some strategies? And now here we are in 2025, and a lot of countries, notably Canada, but also American businesses, are going to have to adapt, because everything they thought they knew about their supply chains, about global trade, is suddenly shifting. And you can buy those on Amazon.
Yes, and the last name is spelled Hirsch. That's correct?
That is correct.
All
yeah.
right. I know you work for the Bank of Canada. I know that you talk to people in the banking industry. We talked about sort of the high-level economic expert experience with tariffs and the idea of what these things, these proposals, in some cases, some realities might do to the markets and the countries in play here. The banking industry in Canada, what's been their reaction to some of these developments?
Well, I think the banking industry in Canada is quite concerned, obviously, because when you look at the bank's clients, and we have a very, very different banking system, by the way, than you do in the States. We've got about 6 major banks and then maybe about 20 smaller ones, whereas in the United States, there's, I think 4,500 regional banks, some of them larger, some smaller. But in Canada, our banking system is a bit unique. The banks, I think, are concerned because their clients are made up of Canadian businesses and Canadian sort of retail customers, all of which are potentially threatened and hit by tariffs. So if you're a bank and suddenly your business book is not looking as good because some of your businesses are looking at insolvency or at least impairment, that speaks volumes. And I think I'd love to be a fly on the wall in some of these corporate boardrooms among the banks, because they're sitting back sort of helplessly, like, what are we going to do to help support our customers?
Whenever I have an expert on, I always sort of want them to sort of read the tea leaves or look ahead and what they think might happen. As we're talking about the relationship between Canada and the United States, the tariffs that are being proposed or implemented, where do you see this story going? Will cooler heads prevail? Will the countries sort of work it out under the leadership of Donald J. Trump or maybe Congress or a different agency?
If you would have asked me this question 3 months ago, I would have said, oh, yeah, cooler heads will prevail. We'll work this out. This is the president, and he's, this is tub thumping. This is negotiating tactic. This isn't really going to happen. But today, I do believe these tariffs are going to happen one way or the other. I don't think for Canada reasonable conversations are going to be a good strategy for us, trying to talk our way out of these tariffs. I'm at a point now where I think Canada, we have to accept this is what's happening. It's not going to go away. These tariffs are going to happen, and now we have to react. So how do we do that? In Canada, now there is a lot of talk, and to be perfectly fair, Canada has not been particularly rigorous in taking care of its own economy. We've become, and I say this as a Canadian economist, we've become a bit fat and lazy and complacent. We've always taken for granted that whatever we chop down or grow or dig out of the soil or manufacture, we can sell it to you guys. And we've not really had to be particularly competitive globally. That is now changing on us. Now the task for Canada is to become more fiercely competitive globally, to maybe expand some of our trade linkages with other parts of the world, notably Europe, maybe Asia, maybe Australia, other parts of the world where we have not really had to market ourselves that aggressively. I often compare Canada to Australia, two very, very similar countries in a lot of ways. Sort of a thin population spread over enormous geography. We've got a lot of resources, valuable resources. Canada's main advantage for most of the last 100 years is that we've been right on your doorstep. Australia never ever had that. Australia's always had to hustle and brand themselves and market themselves to customers around the world. Canada hasn't had to do that. But now the tables have turned, and Canada finds ourselves on our back foot because we're starting to learn what does it mean to be more globally competitive.
Perhaps a bright spot in what seems like sort of a crazy scenario of late with the new administration coming into power in the United States. Todd Hirsch, Canadian economist, author, speaker, and lives in Calgary, but joining us today from Toronto. Thanks for taking the time.
It's been a pleasure, Steve. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. We'll take a break here. Listen, of course, to Political Power Hour on 620 WTMJ.
Is outdoor living limited at your place? Well, imagine a deck, a patio, pergola, fire pit, maybe even an outdoor kitchen in your yard. Outdoor Living Unlimited is a local, family-owned company that consults, designs, and builds these things. They're the best. Let them make Outdoor Living Unlimited in your yard like they did in ours. We are Wisconsin. We live outdoors as much as possible. Make the most of it with help from Outdoor Living Unlimited. See OutdoorLivingUnlimited.com.
Hey, this is WTMJ Steve Scaffidi for Milwaukee Weight Loss. If you've been following me on my journey, now down 37 pounds. It's the secret, by the way, to losing 1 pound of fat every day. Their doctors have developed easy-to-follow weight loss program. I can follow it. You can, too. Helps you lose weight fast, naturally, safely. No drugs, no injections, no prepackaged meals, bars, shakes, all that stuff. Their program helps reset your metabolism so you can keep the weight up for good with a coach. Mine's Emily. They're all great out there. Their program costs up to half as much, works up to twice as fast as most of their programs. Many patients lose 20 to 30 pounds in about a month or two. Look at me. I'm a success story. You can be too. It's crazy to watch your body lose that weight, but you feel so much better. Schedule your free consultation by calling 262-449-1180 or go to MilwaukeeWeightLoss.com. That's MilwaukeeWeightLoss.com. Results may vary.
Test Rest a Beauty Rest Black mattress at Steinhafels for your chance to win a dream Hawaiian vacation. Shop now and save up to $400 on Beauty Rest Black mattresses. Plus, get up to $300 in Steinhafels cash. Shop in-store or online at steinhafels.com.
So how is that possible? 1.9% real estate commission? There must be something you're not telling me.
I hear that a lot. The truth is, everybody could do it, but they choose not to because folks keep paying more than they have to. I guess they just haven't heard yet that Century 21 Benefit Realty can make that 1.9% real estate commission promise on the sale of your home and stick to it. So I'd like to think that's going to make your decision easy. This is Angela Calais with Century 21 Benefit Realty, benefit-realty.com, where you pay less for full service. Each office is independently owned and operated.
The Lifetime Door Free Garage Door Contest is almost over. Time is running out to win a brand new garage door from Lifetime Door. Absolutely free. This contest ends March 31st. Don't miss the chance to win a stunning, high-quality garage door that will boost your home's curb appeal and values. Entering is easy. Text GARAGE to the WTMJ Talk and Text line, or just go to WTMJ.com and the entry form is on the very front page. It's just that simple. For contest rules, visit our website, WTMJ.com.
WTMJ, W277CV, and WKTI HD2 Milwaukee from the Annex Wealth Management Studios. This is News Radio WTMJ, a Good Karma brand station.
Always enjoy my conversations with my next guest, Sherwin Hughes. You hear his work. He's actually on the same time I am, so we had to record this. But we're looking at a individual, Elon Musk. I think he's still the richest guy in the world, although his stock has taken a big hit in the last couple of weeks. You used the term as we were talking before we started, unfettered access. I'm curious what you think. I'm not a fan of Elon Musk. What do you think about him?
I think it's dangerous when you give any individual, whether they are connected to a president or not, that kind of access to Americans' personal, private information, especially their Social Security numbers. If you look at something that is protected in this country, there are few things that are more protected by state laws and federal laws than our Social Security numbers. And this data is not anonymous, so they're able to go in, Doge and Elon Musk and his cast of characters are able to get detailed information about Americans' medical records, your savings for your retirement, et cetera. All this personal information is very, very dangerous and damaging.
When you think about it, this is something that we really haven't seen to this degree. Someone that has almost co-president rights, although he is unelected, of course, and even more importantly, unvetted. Critics of those of us who don't like Musk will say, well, that's the only way he's going to get to the heart of the problem, the fraud, the abuse, and Social Security, is if he has individual citizen data.
They haven't uncovered anything yet. That's the problem. They have not found any real revelation. So even when Trump gave his address to Congress, they talked about all of these millions and billions of dollars they found. A lot of that stuff were mishaps and mistakes. Like there was something that they found. They said, we found $3 billion worth of fraud. It was actually $3 million. So the things that they are finding are not really amounting to much of anything. So nothing tangible as of yet.
Do you think at the end of the day we will see a fracture at some point between Elon Musk and the President of the United States, Donald J. Trump? I predicted it would end at sometime this spring. What do you see?
Yeah, you got two guys with these huge egos, and I think as long as they are serving each other's interests, they'll be fine. But as soon as that Tesla stock goes down another 10 or 15%, even though they did a car show on the White House lawn, that's not helping Tesla stock. Or if Elon Musk wants to move in a different direction than Donald Trump, I think that relationship is over.
One of the battles that I fight with people who email and text me on our show is that, are you saying you're against the sort of rooting out government fraud and abuse? And I say no, but this to me is not the way that you do it. That is a big issue with a lot of people, that we are top heavy. We have a big bloated federal government, and we are spending money that maybe we don't need to spend. How do you reconcile those two things? Rooting out the abuse and fraud, and at the same time try to be more efficient.
Now, there is abuse and fraud. I think most Americans will agree with that, because if these things go unchecked and Congress can get a little bit too overzealous with some of the things that they create funding for, let's have someone that is actually accountable to Congress, that is, appointed and vetted by the U.S. Senate to go in and actually do these investigations of fraud and abuse. But having a South African national who has some other agenda that I think is still unclear to a lot of Americans, having that individual be the one to root out that fraud and abuse is problematic, because we cannot hold, as an American country and American people, Elon Musk accountable. But if there was someone who was appointed by the U.S. Senate to go in and look at this fraud and abuse, then we could at least hold them or our U.S. senators accountable.
Got to ask you about, we're early into the Trump second term. What do you see the next 3+ years looking like if this is all the things that have happened in the first couple of months?
Steve, I can't tell you what the next 3 days is going to look like. So, it's Monday today, or people will be hearing this on Monday. I don't know what Friday of this week is going to look like. What I'm most concerned about are the defiance of these judicial court orders. I had a former Attorney General Eric Holder on my program last week, and he has never seen anything like this. In fact, no one has ever seen anything like this, where an executive branch openly defies federal court order. So who knows what the next 3, 6, 2, 5 years will look like.
Sherwin Hughes, you can catch him 9 to 12 on The Truth, 101.7. Always appreciate you hanging out.
Thank you.
All right. News is next on 620 WTMJ.
Welcome to The Knowledge Brokers, weekly feature covering the dynamics of the insurance market and how it affects Wisconsin businesses and residents. It's sponsored by the original Knowledge Broker, R&R Insurance. Joining us once again